When people talk about helping others, they often picture charity as something temporary, something that fills a gap until things get better, but that picture hides a quiet problem because temporary help can turn into permanent limitation if we never question the system behind it. The hook here is not food, it is dignity, and how easily dignity gets lost when solutions stay the same for decades. The context begins with a simple observation that many systems we accept as normal were designed for a different time and a different level of expectation. When a model stays unchanged for generations, it starts to serve itself more than the people inside it. Food support is one of those systems. It was built to move volume, not quality, to solve hunger, not health, and to feel efficient for providers, not for those receiving help. Over time, that shape became familiar, and familiarity often looks like truth, but familiarity can also hide low standards. The first surface insight is about quality on the surface. This is about giving fresh food instead of leftovers, but quality here means more than taste, it means respect. When someone receives food that is chosen carefully, packed with intention, and delivered consistently, the message is not just eat this, it is you matter. In everyday life we understand this clearly. Think about how you feel when a guest brings something thoughtful versus something they just wanted to get rid of. The object may look similar, but the feeling is completely different. Quality changes the relationship between giver and receiver. It removes shame, it replaces survival mode with normal life moments like choosing how to cook a meal or sharing fruit with a child. That surface idea pulls us in, but it does not yet explain why this matters so deeply. The second insight sits under the surface, and it is about a hidden assumption. Many social systems assume that people in need should accept whatever is available. This assumption sounds practical, but it carries a quiet judgment. It suggests that some people deserve choice and others should feel grateful without question. We see this in daily life when services are designed without asking users what they experience. Think of waiting rooms, forms that confuse people, or rules that make simple tasks harder. The assumption is that efficiency for the system matters more than ease for the person. This story pushes against that by insisting on listening, measuring stress, asking about delivery experience, and caring how people feel after help arrives. This flips the assumption. It says that outcomes are not only about calories delivered but about stress reduced, trust built in, daily life made lighter. When stress drops, health improves because the body finally has space to rest. This is not complicated science, it is human experience. The third insight moves from assumptions to structure. The pattern here is that many organizations separate doing good from doing well. They treat social work as something that must always struggle, and business is something that must always extract. This split creates fragile systems that burn out workers and fail communities. The structure rewards sacrifice while calling it virtue. Volunteers are praised while paid work is questioned. Donated goods are celebrated while sustainable funding is seen as impure. Over time, this structure reproduces the same instability it claims to fight. In everyday work we see this when teams are underpaid but overpraised, or when passion is used to excuse burnout. The deeper pattern is that without stability, impact cannot last. A system that depends on exhaustion will eventually collapse, no matter how good the intention. So the structural shift here is combining dignity for recipients with dignity for workers, paying people reliably, buying quality supplies, and treating the work as real business. This does not reduce care, it strengthens it. At this point the reframing becomes clear. Instead of asking how can we help more people, the question becomes how can we build something that does not break the people inside it. This reframing changes scale, it moves focus from short-term wins to long-term presence. It also changes identity. The work is no longer about rescuing others but about standing with them consistently in daily life. This is the difference between checking in once during a crisis and showing up every week quietly. It is less dramatic but more powerful because it creates trust. When people know help will arrive without strings attached, stress fades and planning becomes possible. Planning is where life grows beyond food. This reframing applies to many parts of life: parenting, education, management, friendship. We often think intensity equals care, but consistency builds safety. A calm, predictable system can feel boring to outsiders, but it feels like relief to those inside. The application to daily life is subtle but strong. It invites us to look at where we accept low standards because that is how it has always been. Maybe it is how meetings are run, how support is offered, how feedback is given, or how help is asked for. It also asks where we confuse struggle with meaning. Some people believe work must hurt to matter, but joy can be a signal of alignment, not selfishness. When something feels right, it often means your actions match your values. This kind of joy does not come from praise, it comes from not having to convince yourself anymore. The optional deepening here is about growth and learning. The story shows that not knowing everything at the start can be an advantage. Ignorance removes fear of rules that should be questioned anyway. When you do not know what is supposed to be impossible, you try things others avoid. In daily life this happens when beginners ask simple questions experts stopped asking long ago. Growth here was not smooth, it involved failure, constant adjustment, and learning in public, but learning became part of the identity. Learning replaced fixed goals because goals can limit imagination. When you focus only on targets you may miss what emerges organically, but when you focus on attention, effort, and values, direction stays open. This openness allows evolution without losing purpose. As we sit with all of this, the deeper message becomes less about food and more about authorship. Who gets to decide what is possible? Who gets to define what quality looks like? When people write their own story instead of inheriting broken scripts, new patterns appear, patterns where care and competence live together, where business and kindness are not enemies, and where doing good does not require living on the edge of collapse. The work becomes not a burden but a source of grounded pride, and that kind of pride is quiet. It shows up as steady mornings, paid staff, full trucks, and families cooking real meals without worry. It does not shout, it simply lasts. So as you think about the systems you touch, whether at work, in community, or in your own habits, the gentle question to hold is, where might raising the standard of dignity change everything more than raising the amount of effort?